Smaulgld.
Hello and welcome to another Smaulgld live stream. It is May 13th and it is a Monday. Welcome Smaulgld, mug stackers and game changers. Tonight's episode, Bitcoin institutionalization heats up as price tops $8,000. We're going to get into that story, and we're a bit behind on the news. We're a bit behind on a lot of stories, so I thought tonight would focus on the Bitcoin phenomena over the past 3 or 4 days. We've got some 2020 news, 2020 election. We've got some Chinese trade war news, some Trump, Comey, Mueller news, a bit of Moronica, and some market news. Won't have time to get to all that tonight. Tonight we've got a full stack show on the cryptocurrencies. We'll get to all those stories hopefully tomorrow. If not, we'll have to spread them out. I mean, a lot of these things, 2020 and Trump, Comey, Mueller, and Chinese trade war, they are events that are going on, and so it's always okay to catch up even if we miss a couple of days on the news. But I want to catch up now on the cryptocurrencies and what's going on in that space. Now, a common theme that I have mentioned for at least 18 months was that institutions were eyeing this. Remember, we've talked about the two camps. The Bitcoin fanatics, they're talking about game changers and talking about how Bitcoin's going to crush central banking and change the world. And then you have the other camp of no coiners. Bitcoin is useless, no intrinsic value. It's a Ponzi scheme. Governments are going to shut it down. And I've never cottoned on to either of those ideas or those camps. I've been saying that if indeed the no coiners are correct, that Bitcoin can be shut down, I always thought, why would they, unless it really was a threat? And remember, if you can neutralize a threat and integrate it into your own, then it's no longer a threat, it's an actual advantage. I mean, look at the Roman Empire, what they used to do. They'd conquer their lands and then they'd offer citizenship, and then from being a citizen you'd get soldiers, and now they're on your side fighting on your side. So it never really makes sense, this idea that you just do this outright ban, especially when there's a lot of money in that Bitcoin and all those other cryptocurrencies. And we know that Wall Street loves this stuff. Wall Street loves a bubble. Wall Street loves to pump stuff. We only have to look no further recently than Lyft, Uber, Snapchat. They can pump anything. We're going to talk about that, how Wall Street pumps stuff and how Wall Street brings on institutions and basically can get them to buy whatever, because the institutions know that they've got to be on board if they want to get the preferred offering so they can make money. And they know that Wall Street, the banks are the ones that are the investment banks are the ones that are going to push the securities that they buy and make them go higher. So my theory has been that Wall Street would love cryptocurrencies, that not only do they have advantages as a payment system, but that's a threat to the existing payment systems, but that they would love to be able to promote an entirely new asset class, because each asset class comes with it custodial fees, trading fees, ETF setup. There's a whole bunch of products and services that can be replicated in an entirely new asset class, and that means more money. Also, they can create tokens from existing securities or companies that they represent. So it's big, big money to get into this, and that's why I've been saying that they're pushing this, they're not fighting this. And of course, when you get these entities like Wall Street and Silicon Valley, they have a lot of money, so they can push for and fight for regulation that, maybe it's a big nuisance for them and it costs a lot of money, but, and under the guise that it protects investors and so on, it keeps everyone else out. And remember what we said about 2017, that crypto bubble was composed entirely of knuckleheads on YouTube and B-level celebrities promoting ICOs, driving Bitcoin up to 20,000, and Wall Street didn't get a dime of it. And I'm sure they're looking at this and saying to themselves, we can do a lot better with that. All right, so let's get into what happened today. Now, the price went up to $8,200. It's now on a free fall to $7,600. So it is a roller coaster. We see this all the time in Bitcoin. The price goes up, the price goes down. But price was only $4,000 just a month or so ago. So we're really seeing a big increase in the price. Now, let's get into some of the stories about what's been happening in the crypto space and what's been driving this. And there's a lot of updates in all of this. Let me pull up not my notes. I do this show without any notes. I just do this on the fly, and I pull up the tweets of the day. So these are usually the best guide to what's going on. All right, let's see here. I'm just trying to think where we should start, because what I'm looking for is, I made a quip earlier just before we got on here. Maybe I didn't pull it up, which was, does anyone really think that Joey Bag of Bitcoins is driving this rally? And it's not. This is institutions, and I'll explain what's going on. Now, remember, we talked about Bakkt. Let's start with Bakkt, and then we're going to get into ErisX. We're going to get into Fidelity, TD Ameritrade, Goldman Sachs. They're all on board with this crypto train. Well, we got news today that Bakkt, those of you who don't know what Bakkt is a consortium of ICE, Intercontinental Exchange, which owns a New York Stock Exchange, and they're working with Microsoft, Starbucks, and Boston Consulting to do a physically delivered Bitcoin futures. And they've run into some difficulties with their regulators. They've got custody issues. I'm not going to get into all the details now, but they're working all that out. Now they're saying that they're going to launch sometime in, I think it's July, they'll start the user testing. Now, this is a big deal because obviously if the New York Stock Exchange is backing with Microsoft a platform to trade cryptocurrencies, the institutions, they're going to get involved. So that was announced today that they set a July test date. So that probably got a lot of institutional interest. Now you say, well, Bakkt isn't open yet. Yeah, it's not, but I learned the other day that ErisX, which has investments from TD Ameritrade and Fidelity, and it's a institutional platform, they began spot trading about 4 or 5 days ago, which is kind of coincides with the big run-up in the cryptocurrencies. That's just spot trading. Not their futures trading hasn't launched, but the spot trading is the actual buying and the selling of the cryptocurrencies, which it looks like they're actually starting to do. Now here, Bakkt put out today we're pleased to update you on the launch of Bitcoin futures contract developed by Bakkt in collaboration with ICE Futures, which is the New York Stock Exchange owner, and ICE Clear US. Very, very big players indeed. Now, Fidelity is also supposedly doing the same thing ErisX just launched. They're going to have, for their institutional clients in just a couple of weeks, the same exact thing. They're going to have a bunch of crypto products. Not quite sure how many they're going to have. One interesting thing to note in all of this big run-up in Bitcoin, it has been a Bitcoin run-up. It is not an altcoin run-up. And the reason for that is it's institutional. Now, Grayscale Fund, which has a bunch of different cryptocurrency funds, announced today that in the first quarter, 99% of the new funds that they brought in were to Bitcoin. So with Litecoin, Ethereum, XRP, Bcash, all the other funds that they have, saw very little money moving into them. So institutionals are definitely looking at this space as Bitcoin right now. Now you can look at that two ways. You could say, well, that means there's an opportunity in the altcoins. Or you could look at it another way, is that institutions know best and they don't want anything to do with the altcoins. My opinion is that they're not going to be just content with Bitcoin. The more it gets expensive, the more people are flowing into it, the promoters will push them into all types of altcoins, and even ones that you would probably not want to touch with a 10-foot pole. But that's getting ahead of ourselves. Right now, this is a Bitcoin rally based on institutional investments, it seems. Now, here is and again, you have to kind of search for this news. They didn't do a press release. I heard this interview here. ErisX spot market launched last week. This was from listening to this obscure video from the interview with the ErisX digital head of strategy. And he was talking about how they had already launched the spot market last week. There's no announcement. I didn't see any of this anywhere. And he talked about how the futures are coming, regulatory approval with CFTC in process. Now that they hope by the end of the year. So there's still so much of the institutional products that have not yet been approved. You got Fidelity's not fully up and running. That's only for institutions. Eventually they're going to bring this to retail. You don't have one Bitcoin ETF approved yet. There's an Ethereum one now pending. Not one of them has been approved. Bakkt is not up and running yet. Fidelity is not up and running yet. Litecoin, we talked about, the Japanese giant that has a bank, a social media platform, a crypto trading platform, and an e-commerce platform. They're launching in June. So there's a lot of institutional events coming up in this space. Now, another thing that was announced, let me just see what else. Well, let me just tell you how Wall Street gets them to buy. And I was just mentioning here, if Wall Street can get investors to buy Lyft, Uber, Snapchat, they can get them to buy Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, and even Bcash. Now, this Lisa Abramowitz person, I think she writes for Bloomberg, she was saying Morgan Stanley pushed its wealthy clients to invest in Uber ahead of its inauspicious IPO, helping the company raise money before going public. So what the banks do, they stand between, they're a middleman. They stand between these companies that Silicon Valley has promoted and put their initial seed capital into, like Uber and Lyft and Snapchat, and then the institutional clients. So they're going to sell Uber to the institutional clients. And without the bank doing that, then Uber doesn't get to go public and bring in hundreds of millions of dollars in IPO money that they can then run their company at a loss for 10 years. And that means that Silicon Valley, if that money doesn't come in, they don't get their, quote, exit, and they can't sell their $2 shares or 50-cent shares for $45. And so that's why Wall Street is very, very important in this game. And they go to the institutional investors and they tell them, listen, Charlie, we get you on every IPO. You got to buy. It's almost like you take the hit if you're an institutional investor, because if you don't buy when Morgan Stanley tells you you got to buy, they're not going to let you in on the next hot IPO. So even as long as Morgan Stanley or any of these investment banks can give you a decent insider return, meaning they let you in on the IPO first, then you're going to flow along with it. They might lose an institutional client here or there because they're pissed off because they bought into Uber or something, but that means they're never going to get involved in the next hot thing. And let's say they've got an allocation of Bitcoin for a certain price, then they're not going to get it. So that's how it works. That's what I've seen how the game works. Institutional investors often buy in the direction of investment banks. And you have to wonder, if you ever look at the prospectus of a mutual fund, and you see they own basically every stock. It's not an index fund. I'm just talking about general mutual funds. They don't have to own all those, but they probably own them just out of a courtesy because some investment banker was hawking that particular company. So that's why I think that this is very ripe for, it's got all the hallmarks, earmarks, whatever you want to call it, of putting the whole Wall Street apparatus and regulation behind the cryptocurrencies. Now, someone actually made note of this. It wasn't me, because I've been making note of it for 17 months. But analyst says institutional demand pumped Bitcoin price this week. It was the institutions, said whoever this guy is, Alex. Who is this guy? Alex Kruger. But he's saying, well, those of you who have been listening to this all along, no. I did ask this question, which is interesting. I didn't ask it to the YouTubers, to you guys, but So Uber comes out with a $76 billion market cap. Lyft's got a $15 billion market cap. That's a total of $95 billion. At the time when I wrote this, there's a glass there. Bitcoin had a $120 billion market cap. Litecoin $5 billion, so $125 billion combined for those guys. And I asked, next year, which pair of those will be higher? Now, this is interesting. Very few people think that Uber and Lyft are going to be higher than Bitcoin and Litecoin next year. Now, what does that tell you? That tells you, Wall Street knows this, that they've probably run the end of this bringing garbage to market and not getting a return. Yes, of course, they've got to go to their clients and they got to buy the IPOs. But how many of these, I don't want to curse on YouTube, but of these companies that are just garbage. When I say garbage, I don't mean they don't have fine people working at them or they don't have a good product. They don't make any money. And it's very difficult to sell long term, and they've done it for the longest time, to sell these companies to the public and say, hey, buy this company. Does it make money? No. Will it make money ever? Probably not. Why should I buy it? Because I'm selling it to you. That's basically what they've been doing, and I don't know how much longer they can do that. And if a very small sample, and I think if you look at the poll, it has like 90 votes now, or maybe 100. It's the same thing. Most people do not believe that Uber and Lyft are going to be knocking it out of the park over the next year or so. So Wall Street, obviously, as I mentioned, needs it. They're at the end of their ability to pump stocks. And what are they going to do? Just say, well, we'll just take a few years off and wait for things to settle down and and they're not going to do that. They got to make money 24/7, 365, and that's why I think they're all over this crypto stuff. Is it the right thing to do? I don't know. I'm just analyzing this. I'm not promoting any of this. I'm not saying to buy anything. I'm not saying to sell anything. I'm not saying what they do is right. I'm just telling you this is what I think that they do, and here's what I see happening. But let's look now at the adoption on the retail side. A lot of stories happened here. Now, Abra has added, and most people don't even know what the heck Abra is. It's an app. You can buy and sell cryptocurrencies on them. They don't have custody of your stuff. You have the private keys. Well, they just added support for thousands of U.S. banks. And again, the on-ramps and the off-ramps are very important to the crypto ecosystem, and Abra's figured out how to do it. Abra's bringing more fiat on-ramp, more options to connect bank accounts. People are saying they're going to shut it down. No, they're trying to integrate this thing. I was having a discussion on Twitter today. Somebody was trying to explain to me how they're going to shut it down, and he's not watching what's going on. You're taking a general concept that government doesn't like Bitcoin, banks are afraid of Bitcoin, so they're going to shut it down. Yeah, that makes sense if you don't know anything and you don't see what's happening and you just want to believe that, and makes sense to believe that if you don't know any better. When I say don't know any better, I mean you're not looking at what actually is happening. Now, Square, that's owned by Jack Dorsey. Mentioned the other day, I think they sold $60-70 million worth of Bitcoin just off the app. Square is absorbing more than 10% of all Bitcoin mining supply on a daily basis. A quick word about Bitcoin mining versus gold mining. Gold mining has increased, and so is silver mining for the past 10 years, exponentially in a way. I mean, they now mine about 4,000 tons of gold a year. Bitcoin mining, they've already mined 17.75 of the 21 million Bitcoins. And that means that there's very little Bitcoin left to mine, and when it's done, it's done. They've already lost like 3 or 4 million. So I don't like these comparisons. That's another thing we're not going to talk about tonight, but we have to go through this nonsense about Bitcoin being digital gold and being sold that way. It's not. But anyway, the point is that Bitcoin mining will cease. Now, what happens is they do these halvings and it gets harder and harder. And so it's going to take like a really long time to stop mining each new Bitcoin. But there's less and less of it to mine as you go forward. Whereas in gold, you can continue to find more gold and you can create new ways of mining gold, so it's profitable. If the price goes up, then you can mine more gold. But Bitcoin, you can't. So that's a big difference there. Now, big announcement today from Gemini. That's the Winklevoss twins, the big billionaires, the twins. They run an exchange, Gemini. They've got a stable coin. Well, they figured out now in a deal how to bring, using cryptocurrencies, they get Bitcoin, Ethereum, Bcash in their own stable coin so that you can spend it at Whole Foods. And they went through a whole litany of companies that have signed on for this. It's Whole Foods, Petco, Bed Bath & Beyond, Lowe's, Jamba Juice, Baskin Robbins, GameStop, Nordstrom, a whole bunch of them. So again, you now have this retail adoption, and that's what BACT is about getting institutional investors in and then creating ways to spend it. Now, why do they want to do all this? Well, here's a good reason. Think of it this way. The Bitcoin market cap is $135 billion right now. You get that up to $1 trillion. From a government standpoint, from a stimulus standpoint, from a fee standpoint, from any way you look at it, that's new money created out of thin air, basically, because there's not much, other than the mining, there's not much going on there. The price is just going higher. That's money that is now available to Whole Foods, Petco, Bed Bath & Beyond, Lowe's, Jamba Juice, whatever company decides they want in on this. That's revenue they're going to get they otherwise wouldn't have gotten. How? Because if you're just a hodler, and let's say you've got $300 million worth of Bitcoin, you got to spend some of it. But if it's hard to spend, you got to convert it and do all. But if you can just walk into a Lambo shop and buy 5 Lambos, the Lamborghini people are very happy about that. So they're trying to create all these ways so that people can store and spend and trade. And that's what Rakuten is about, the Japanese company. They want to sell it. The bank wants to sell the Bitcoin to the people. They want them to be able to trade it on their own platform, spend it in their e-commerce, and then yak about it on their social media platform. I'm sorry, that is where it's headed. I'm not saying it's a bright future, but that is the digital world in which we live, and that is where value is being created. That's where all the effort is being put right now. All right, what else do we have on the adoption of retail? Now, you got Litecoin, which is not a big coin, but they're working with a large travel agency in England, I think it is. Travala partners with Litecoin to champion crypto payments. So that's another. Travel companies and car companies have been very big on adopting cryptocurrencies. And what else do we have? Satellite. Oh, this was interesting. A lot of people say, well, they're going to shut it down. They're going to shut the internet down. Well, they now have ways, and there's a company called Blockstream Satellite, and they're working with ways so you can actually get online and trade your Bitcoin without internet connection through satellite. At the Magical Crypto Conference yesterday or 2 days ago, they showed how you can do it with a ham radio. So all these are on the retail side. They're trying to make it easier. It's still clumsy. You can buy on Cash App and Abra, or on these other exchanges, but they need to make it a lot easier, and they need to make it such that using cryptocurrencies, there's an advantage to it. I mean, I used to think, well, if I can just spend my cash, what difference does it make? Well, if they're going to offer you a discount because the fees are lower, that's an incentive for the merchants to jump on board. And of course, if they realize that somebody is holding on to a lot of cryptocurrencies, they want to get a piece of it. They want you to spend that with them. They have to make it easier for you to do that. So I think a lot of that is happening. Now, Binance has all been forgotten, but Binance had a hack. They lost 7,000. That's the largest crypto exchange in the world. And they lost 7,000 Bitcoins from their hot wallet. And let me just put that there. And so what happened was they had said that they would close down and try to secure the fort before they opened up again. And they're going to open up on Tuesday. What's interesting is that's really what kind of, I don't think that set off the Bitcoin rally, but that's when the Bitcoin rally did get set off. And what they have said they're going to do is reopen. I think it is on. I think it's tomorrow. They're supposed to reopen the Binance trading platform. Let me just see what they say here. Oh, losing it. Yeah, here it is. So I asked a question where whether when Binance reopens, because you can't put money in or take Bitcoin out, what's going to happen? I think it's actually a neutral event, but if you're an anxious trader, you may take your Bitcoin out and say, I've had enough of this, and you just go off and say, I'm going to sell it once it reopens and get your money out. Other people may say, look, they've missed out on this big rally. They're ready to put money into Binance so they can buy their Bitcoin. But I would imagine if you were that desperate to buy, although it does take a while, I think, to set up an account. If you already have a Binance account, maybe you're just waiting for Binance to reopen, and then you send your money in there. But I think this is it's probably bullish, because the hot wallet and their security wallet, which what they had was 7,000 or more Bitcoin in cold storage to cover losses that they might incur in their hot wallet. And then they lost their hot wallet, so now they have to replace those to make good for the traders on their platform. And then they have to add an equivalent amount that they add back in their insurance wallet. So either way, they've got to balance it out. They've got to add something back, whether they put it into the back in. If they take it from the insurance and move into the hot wallet, that means they have to buy Bitcoin and put it in the cold wallet, or they can leave the Bitcoin in the cold wallet, but then they have to buy new Bitcoin and put in the hot wallet so that the investors are made whole. Either way, they've got to replace 7,000 Bitcoin. So that is perhaps a bullish thing. And I think what the people thought in the poll was, half said it was bullish, 18% said bearish, 28% said neutral. I think it's bullish neutral. I think that a lot of this has already worked its way out. The other thing driving all of this is Blockchain Week, which is in New York this week, and Yahoo's talking about it. Crypto world descends on New York as Bitcoin makes a comeback. And the big one there is Consensus Conference begins today against the backdrop of a rally of Bitcoin so far. And they also had on Saturday and Sunday the Magical Crypto. And you had there's the Magical Crypto. You had Max Kaiser's wife. You had Elizabeth Stark from Lightning Network. You had, I was going to say Bruce Lee. Charlie Lee from Litecoin. There's all the Magical Crypto characters that are there. And they had a bull. Gabor Gorbaks mentioned the bull. Now, he's the guy who is leading the Van Eck ETF. That could get approved sometime this year. That's why I'm showing him. But ridiculous with the bull there. Now, HTC makes a phone. This is, again, all the money and innovation that all these different companies are putting into it, and why anyone would even need this. But they plan to release a low-cost smartphone capable of running a full Bitcoin node by the end of Q3. Now, we already saw Samsung integrating the wallet into their phone, cryptocurrencies. This is a massive coordinated effort, I believe, by all these large, not just Wall Street, but technology companies. And we're going to see with Microsoft in a minute. Not only is Microsoft involved with Bakkt, they had another big announcement today as well. And here's HTC integrating full Bitcoin node into surprise new smartphone. Why would they do this unless they expected all this stuff to be taking off? Yeah, let's see, innovation here. Okay, now, Microsoft and Bitcoin. Microsoft launching the first decentralized infrastructure implementation by a major tech company to be built directly on the Bitcoin blockchain. Now, this is all a decentralized way. It's very complicated, but what it allows is decentralization of content so that the user controls it, and it's a situation where Facebook can't take your content down. Very, very interesting indeed. But what's even more interesting about it is, remember the whole blockchain, not Bitcoin? Well, no. This is Bitcoin, not blockchain. Very important development there. That's Microsoft all over this. And the idea that they're trying to quash this, it seems that all the big companies are now getting involved in projects. Now, this one's amazing too. $1 billion flowing into Bitfinex. Now, Bitfinex has the bad name. Bitfinex is the trading platform that issues tethers, which is under scrutiny from the New York Attorney General. And yet, hadn't stopped them from doing an initial exchange offering for $1 billion. It seems like you could snap your fingers now if you have a crypto project and raise money, but not by some knucklehead on a YouTube channel doing some cheesy ICO token. This is big stuff here. This is big money that's moving in. That's why the price is moving higher. All right. Now you got your price predictions. They're going to come out. Now check out all of these price predictions. Here's one for 500,000. Bitcoin price will hit 500,000 because it beats gold. I don't know what that means. Hedge fund chief. Okay, he runs a hedge fund. He somehow thinks 500,000. What other ones do we got? Well, the price, this is old news. They were talking about it soared above 7,000. Well, then it went to 8,000. I think right now, what is it right now? I should be one of those guys that sits and just looks at the screens all day and shouts out the price. What is the price? 78.26. Okay. What other price predictions do we have? So that one was 500,000. This one, Canaccord, 20,000. Okay, that's a little more. But he's saying just by March 2021. That's another analyst's prediction. Might get there before then. Here's a guy, Dan Draper. Actually, his name is Tim Draper. 250,000 because it's taking 5% global market share by 2023. 250,000. We got 20,000. We got 500,000. What else do we have? Novogratz. Here we go. All-time high within 18 months. Well, at this pace, you might get it within 3 months. That's 20,000. Here's the Joey Bag of Donuts comment. There you go. Does anyone think Bitcoin rose from 4,000 to 8,000 in a few weeks because Joey Bag of Bitcoins is buying? Wrongo Star, it's institutional buying. And remember, we showed that one guy say it was institutional buying. We got one more prediction. The biggest of, no, two more. There's a guy named Yusko. He's from Morgan Creek. 400,000 is his. So you got a 400,000, a 500,000, a 250,000, a 20,000. But the biggest and baddest prediction of them all comes from Mr. McAfee, John McAfee, $1 million. And he's saying, and now for a commercial break, Bitcoin's well on its way to 7,000. Well, it's now on its way to 8,000. If this growth rate continues, it will not. Bitcoin would be over 4 million by the end of 2020. But he's basically saying it's mathematically certain you're going to have 1 million by the end of 2020, or he will eat a certain part of his anatomy. Now, there's a lot of, it's interesting. You have the journalist trying to figure out why it's going up. Now, this one says Bitcoin is surging. Here's 4 reasons. And the reasons that they gave were technicals, wrong. Adoption, no, we aren't seeing massive adoption for the price to double. I mean, adoption would have doubled. Sentiment shift, yeah, okay. Or the drop gold campaign by Grayscale, I don't think so. But this guy actually hit it on the head. Forbes, he said, institutions, yes, that's exactly what's happening. Again, that's why I have the Joey Bag of Donuts comment in this segment of our discussion. Bitcoin is rising because institutions. It's not Joey Bag of Bitcoin buying a tenth or a third of a Bitcoin here and there. Now, you still have your naysayers out there, like this guy, Robini. He wrote back in November 2018, my work is done. With Bitcoin down almost 80% from the peak from 20,000 to 4,000, almost all other cryptocurrencies down 80 to 90%, I rest my case. Well, he's going to have to reopen his case that this crypto bubble went bust for good. Now, the guy above made the point I've been making all along. With all these people comparing it to tulips, okay, when tulips go down, when they went down in 1630 or 1635, they were done. They didn't come back. This has come back many a times. So Nouriel Roubini says, I will take a break for a few days from this toxic crypto Twitter. The reason it was toxic was he didn't like when people were saying it was going to go up or it was going to come back. He felt that they just didn't have his understanding of economics. And you see this with the Stiglitz guy who wants it banned. Krugman, Stiglitz and Krugman are both Nobel economists. Roubini isn't, I don't think, but they're the same ilk. They just dislike the fact that this takes some of the monetary policy planning out of their hands, so they're definitely against it. Now, there was a guy, this is, we got a crypto moron here. We should probably play, his name is, let me find his name. Representative Sherman. I'm going to find this guy. Let's see if we can find it, is saying that we've got to stop Bitcoin. It's a bad thing. Ron Paul took him to task. He called him a thug. He said that, let's see if I can get, here, I can play it right now. Here he is.
I look for colleagues to join with me in introducing a bill to outlaw cryptocurrency purchases by Americans, so that we nip this in the bud. In part because not an awful lot of our international power comes from the fact that the dollar is the standard unit of international finance and transactions. Clearing through the New York Fed is critical for major oil and other transactions. And it is the announced purpose of the supporters of cryptocurrency to take that power away from us, to put us in a position where the most significant sanctions we have on Iran, for example, would become irrelevant. So whether it is to disempower our foreign policy, our tax collection enforcement, or our traditional law enforcement, the purposes of cryptocurrency, the advantage it has over sovereign currency is solely to aid in the disempowerment of the United States and the rule of law.
Okay, so that's his point of view. But here's the problem with that. Assuming he's correct, that he knows what he's talking about, I don't know how, and this is idiocy, how banning Americans from having cryptocurrencies is going to stop Iran from using cryptocurrencies to avoid sanctions. It's total idiocy, and he doesn't really have much support for this point of view. Nip it in the bud. It's a bit late for that, especially when all the powerful interests are actually aligning around cryptocurrencies because they're going to make mint off of this. Banning U.S. citizens from owning cryptos would have no impact on other countries any more than banning U.S. citizens from speaking foreign languages. I mean, I'm sorry, that is moronic. If he wanted to call for international cooperation amongst all nations to avoid or to have some type of internet chokehold, something, but just to say he wants to ban Americans from owning cryptocurrencies does not achieve whatever goal he's proposing there. He's making a fool of himself, actually. And apparently, though, there are people in Congress, and I say this is in preparation for Wall Street's crypto bubble. Crypto-friendly U.S. Congress members join new financial technology task force. So they're aware that they're not going to ban anything. What they want to do, and the reason Wall Street, if Wall Street has a lot of cryptocurrencies in custody, well, they know exactly where it is and who owns it. If you trade it on know your customer type exchanges, anti-money laundering exchanges, there's really not a problem. And then you pay your taxes, and they make a fortune, and Wall Street makes a fortune, and the tax revenues go higher. I don't see why people find this hard to even fathom. It's the same with alcohol. I'm not saying that people would break the law to use crypto the way they would break the law to use alcohol, because one, you need to have, the other, if it's inconvenient to use Bitcoin, you probably won't unless you're a criminal. But you make far more money collecting revenue from taxes from alcohol than you do hiring G-men to try to stop people from selling it. It's the same with cryptocurrencies. If Wall Street can regulate all this stuff in Silicon Valley and they can pump all this stuff to the moon, Fidelity trading fees. Now, the crypto fanatics, the Bitcoin, they don't like this because, well, then it's not private. Everyone knows what you're doing. Yeah, well, when you buy stock on Fidelity, you buy Apple shares, government knows what you're doing, and you declare taxes at the end of the year. They send you a form. That's what they're going to do with cryptocurrencies. And 99% of the people won't give a hoot. As long as they're making their money, they don't care. Now, it's interesting. Here's an assemblyman. I think he's over at Consensus Today. He's probably trolling for campaign donations. He says, blockchain industry needs better lobbying. And that is exactly what's happening. In fact, the video that you heard from Representative Sherman calling for a ban came from a company that actually does crypto lobbying. But this assemblyman saying we need more. And here is the one, SEC to consider an Ethereum exchange-traded fund application. I think there's like 11 Bitcoin ETFs. Eventually, they're going to approve one or two of them. And that's just going to create more demand. Meanwhile, Facebook seems to be under a lot of scrutiny. There's a lot of talk about, we're not going to talk about the presidential candidates right now. We've got some great moronic in there from Beto O'Rourke, from Lizzie Warren, and Biden. But right now we're talking about U.S. senators seek information on Facebook's Libra crypto project, which is their interest in putting out their own Facebook coin. And what was I going to say about Facebook? Anyway, Facebook wants to put out a coin, and the senators are not really taking a kind view on that because they already have too much power. Not just in social media, but they don't want them getting any more. Okay, do we got any more crypto stories? We got a lot of stories on investment. We got Litecoin, price predictions, tulips. Here's Robini. Yeah, he debated Novogratz. He says it's much worse than... I have no patience for the tulip argument because the tulips came and went and never came again, and it was a short period of time. Bitcoin's been doing this for 11 years. It hasn't gone away anytime it's crashed. Remember, the last collapse took it to 3,200, which was higher than the year before anyway. So it may have collapsed from 20,000, went to 3,200, and you see more and more innovation. So when the tulip bubble ended, they weren't still selling tulips and people going into the tulip business. Everyone shut down, and that was the end of it. As we've just seen, a glimpse of all the money that's pouring in and all the things that are happening. If the bubble was over, you wouldn't be seeing that anymore. But I don't know if people think they sound intelligent because they can say tulips or they can say bubble many times. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, did tulip mania last 11 years? No. I like to call him Clinton administration economist Nouriel Roubini says, Bitcoin, much worse than tulip mania. All right, so the price went higher on a percentage basis and it came down, but not quite sure what the point is. All right, well, there's a lot there to digest. We're going to go to the comments section now, see what you're saying. Tomorrow, try to get back on track with some of the news. And we're going to talk about the Chinese-U.S. trade war and also what's going on with the Russian hoax, if you want to call it that. All right, let's see. If you want your comment called out, please put SMAULGLD. If you're enjoying these podcasts, please consider making a one-time donation or joining Patreon or Subscribe Store to support the channel, or making a Bitcoin or Litecoin donation, or a payment via PayPal. Or if you don't have your Smaulgld mug yet, go to smaulgld.com and get yourself a classic or a super classic mug or a beer stein or a frosted beer mug. Plenty of different products over there. That helps the site out as well. Let me just show you the Subscribe Star as well. Because actually, I have to get $150 in Subscribe Star before they even put the money out. I think there's $35 in there. So if anyone wants to help me out by joining one of the Smaulgld mug stacker clubs in Subscribe Star, I'd appreciate that. If you're a new one, I think I only have three. That's it. 3 subscribes. So very appreciative of the 3 that are there. But you need to have 5 and $150 before you can get your money out. So that's another advantage of the cryptocurrencies. You get them directly and then you have them. The fees are small, much smaller, and there's no middleman telling you how much you need to have before they're going to give you your money. And they can't say, we don't like your face, we don't like what you said, we're not going to give you the money, like has happened on Patreon. They kick you off. So again, if anyone wants to help out your pal Smaulgld, join one of the mug stacker clubs. Go to subscribestar.com and then check out Smaulgld. Otherwise, you can also help out in the other traditional ways, which are on your screen. All right, let's see what we've got in questions and comments. All right. At the top chat, we got a good crowd here tonight. Uh-oh, we got a moron here. Let's see. Live chat. I got some great Bernie quotes coming up, but we couldn't do it today. Ann says Binance doesn't require KYC. And you know what? I think that's why they got nailed. Oh, no, that wasn't them. That was Bitfinex. They got nailed by the New York Attorney General. But I don't think Binance does any business in the United States. I think you have to send your money overseas to do that. All right, let's see. Question. Okay, Johnny on the spot. I'm giving Canadian cash and Bitcoin only sells in US dollars. Part of my... I don't know about what your issue is with your exchange there. You guys can figure that out. Phil McCain had a big night at the casino. Made $100. And doesn't like Novogratz. I have a reason not to like him either. I don't remember what it was. I think it's when he pulled out of... he was making all kinds of noises. Bitcoin to the moon. Then he was like, yeah, never mind. Philip McCain. Silver will go to 100,000. That is all I need to know. You know, I do want to point out something here. It struck me again, but we really have an issue. The silver pumping is... People actually believe this stuff. I think what I did today just crossed my mind. Yeah, I think it's right here. There it is. Does anyone still listen to this? Seriously, does anyone on this channel who's been listening actually believe there's gold in the Grand Canyon, that JP Morgan bought 200 million Silver Eagles, whatever number, ridiculous number they say they bought, that there's a COMEX default coming, that there's going to be a gold back yuan, digital illusions of wealth, and that the gold-silver ratio is unsustainable and should be 16-1 or 1-1. Wasn't going to do it, but here we go. There it is. Who is this guy saying that the gold-silver ratio shouldn't be 16-1? Look at that. It's 88-1. It's unbelievable. And people believe this stuff. And the audiences on these channels that lap up this nonsense. Because that's what it is. There's no truth in it whatsoever. And then you go on a channel like SGT and you tell them, no, they're not buying any silver at JP Morgan. Who is this guy? What does he know? This guy. And they all get mad because they've been listening to this on every other channel, the same nonsense 24/7, 26 channels, all saying the same BS. But anyway, I don't think there's anyone who listens to this channel that actually believes that stuff. All right. And again, it's not because I'm against gold and silver. I'm against just making up stories about gold and silver that they're not true. Demonstrably not true. Well, you can't prove that they're not true. Okay, that is all I need to know if that's how you're going to argue. You can't prove that it is not true. No, you can't argue with a moron. Let's see, what else do we have? We got a lot of comments, none from me directly, so I'm just going to scroll through them here. Nope, that's it. Nope. Let's see. Here we go. Smaulgld. I see a few. Let's see. Right. Pablo, Jack, I have a Smaulgld mug. That is all I need to know. That's right. Mugs are real wealth. Mugs can never go to zero. They have mugs at the offices of JP Morgan. JP Morgan is buying mugs hand over fist, and you cannot prove that they are not. JP Morgan is buying mugs. That is all I need to know. There are mugs at the bottom of the Grand Canyon. Mugged backed yuan. Game changer. All right, guys. I gotta get going here. Send lawyers, guns, and money. Smaulgld, when you short a stock, where does the money come from when it drops? What is that, an existential question? All right. Maybe we'll do a seminar on how to short a stock and what it means. All right, everyone. I want to thank you very much for joining me. Tomorrow night, we'll be back. We'll try to drop the crypto unless there's big news. I think we're caught up now in just the general things that are happening. We'll try to get into the 2020 stuff. I think is interesting, as is the stuff that's going on with Mueller and the Russian stuff. Smaulgld, what economists you consider worth learning from? Are you talking about current economists or old economists? What I like to do when people want to learn economics, first thing I suggest is you read The Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith. That's generic. And then the reason I like Austrian economics is because it's economics without intervention. The problem with Austrian economics is they talk about everything as if there's a free market, and there's not. So you have to take into account, and then you have to learn all the interventionists like the Keynesian stuff. You have to read Keynes. Mises is good, and Hayek is good. Friedman is very good, but Friedman is a Chicago school, and you're going to learn about how he's for free markets, except they like monetary intervention to support free markets. I think I'm trying to think I can find a book that puts all three together. I think you need to learn free market economists. You need to learn Chicago school economists and Keynesian economists, and then you can figure out your own way of navigating through that. What's the best way? Do you have some government intervention, no government intervention? Do you have sound money? Do you have an expanding money supply? What's the government's role in the economy? You have fiscal stimulus, monetary stimulus. You have no stimulus. So I think there's not one person that you can read to form your opinion. You really need to study the different schools of economics and then find your favorite economists within those schools. I hope that's a good answer. Yeah. All right. I don't see anything else there, so we will say good night. Oh, and also, if you are interested in buying your gold or silver, you can do that through the Smaulgld site. I do appreciate that. I get a small commission. It's not investment advice to buy gold or silver, but if you're going to, there's affiliate links there, SD Bullion, Money Metals Exchange, Golden Eagle Coins. Go over to smaulgld.com or the links below this video, and you can purchase there. Also on the Smaulgld site, we have emergency food offers, coffee offers, and of course, mug offers. Oh, and by the way, tonight was supposed to be Monday night Mugging for Life, and we didn't get around to playing the song. So I'm going to leave you with the Mugging for Life song, and we'll see you tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, mug life, baby. Mug life, baby. Yeah, we rockin' the booth. We mugging for life. We mugging for truth. Smaulgld here, and he's spitting the facts about the pumper community and the way that they act. We mugging for life. We ain't playing the games. We all know the lies and we all know the names. Come on. Mugging for life. Mugging for life. Smaulgld.
And that's a wrap.